Welcome guys, this is Mr. Ndabezita, and this time we will be looking at the equals method, and we are going to do things differently because I remember previously when we looked into this, we looked at the equals method in terms of the strings. We were comparing the strings and we know what that did. So you can just go to our tutorial C# strings and then you will see exactly what we did. So that was just comparing strings. We never dealt with the objects and see whether if we have to invoke some things like the array list with the equals method, how will things work out. And in this tutorial, this is exactly what we will do. So first of all, I think it is very important that we read some few lines that might give us an idea of what we are trying to do here. And they say the equals method is used to determine whether two objects of a class are the same. So you will have two objects. Obviously we are comparing two objects that are different, and we want to find out whether this object and this object has the same data inside. Remember, our interest is the data that is inside of an object. That's what makes an object unique. So we can have the very same objects with identical data and we want to compare them. So we want to run through these objects and then we want to get some reply as to whether they are equal or not. But we will be using the array list and many things. So first of all, we will just look at an example that might give us an idea as to what is happening here. So we will be using inheritance and many things. So we are therefore saying that the equals method, it is a method. It is very important that we understand that we are dealing with a method here. The equals method is used to determine whether two objects of a class, so we are dealing with object-oriented programming, whether they are the same. And then we will see the syntax and everything that has to do with that. So let me just have a namespace and say object equality. Let me just call this the project name object equality. So this will be the namespace. This is inside of the folder and we will try to upload this later today. So it is very important that we understand that .NET 6.0 environment long-term support will be used. Okay, that is fine. It is very important that when you are new to this object-oriented tutorials of Papa Fanzo, you download the previous tutorials that we have had so that you may be able to be on track. So one thing that we will do, first of all, we will still work with a smartphone. We will create a smartphone class and it will inherit from a class. We will see all that and then we will go on to look at whatever that needs to be looked at. And we will also have many things, but I think we will deal with that when the time is okay. So in this tutorial we will look at the equals method and we will look at the contains method, whether this object contains something. We will do all these things. So let's just wait for the compiler to finish up and then we can start working on that. So it is so important that we just try to understand and follow in a procedural way of programming. Okay, it's taking a little bit longer. I do not know why. I think maybe Camtasia is the cause of all this. So let me just close the Camtasia so that we can speed up the things. We can just speed up things. No. and we will be able to be fine. Okay, here we are. And the first thing that we always do, remember, is to just create a main where we can just run our code. So the very first thing I will do, I will have a namespace that I will call X, and I will have a class. I'll just call this class P. And then what else will I have? I will have a static void. Okay, sorry. I will have a static void main string of argument, and we will be fine. So I will just end the main there. I will just end the class. And one most important thing that I am going to do is to just simply create a new item. Oh, sorry. All right, let's add let's go straight to a class, and we will call this class let me just call this and just give it a name of let me think. I'm going to call this a smartphone. I don't know why the laptop is more slow today than any other days, so let me just call this the smart. In fact, let me just call this the smartphone. So this will be the name of the class that we have. And okay, all right, let's just wait for it. There we have it. So we can just end the class. So this is my smartphone, and this smartphone that I have will inherit from an equatable equatable okay, let me do it in this way. I.e. equatable. There it is. It will inherit from an equatable, and I will just press the tab to complete that for me. Now let us try to check what is happening here. Okay, let me just do this, and let me just get rid of that. Let me end smartphone. Right, so here we are ending. Oh, sorry, let me just get rid of that. Right, so here we are saying the smartphone will inherit from equatable, and then this is a what now. It is very important that when we hover over here, defines a generalized method, right, that accepts a type. And what type is this? This is an object. It accepts an object. This is the type that we are specifying here. And it says a smartphone does not implement the interface member equatable. The first thing that we need to note is that this class is an interface. Very, very important. We are dealing with an interface. So the class, the type which we have specified as a class, must provide an implementation of what now? Of the methods that are inside of this interface. It defines a generalized method. This is a generalized method. Very important. that a value type or a class, very important. So we have sent in a class. It defines a generalized method that a value type or a class implements to create a type specific method for determining equality of instances or equality of object. T is smartphone. So the type that you have specified here is an object type. You have sent in an object here, a class. So the type is a class, but we know that you are going to create an object of that class. Now, smartphone does not implement the interface member I equatable smartphone. Right, this is exactly what we need to do. This interface method accepts what now? A specific type, which in this case we are sending a class. Right. Let us continue. Now I'm going to have some few fields inside of this smartphone. I will have them as a public. It will be of type string, and we will call this a model. So this phone has a model. Publics. This is a little bit more similar to the previous tutorial where we looked at the array list and we also used the smartphone. So it is very important that you go on and check on that tutorial so that you know exactly what we did there. And these are just the members, the fields inside of my class. And then one thing I will have, once again, it's just a public property smartphone, and this constructor, sorry, not property, it will accept two arguments, which is model and the price. And you know why we are going to use this keyword is because this name is the same as that name and we want to differentiate from those two, so we are going to use this keyword. We dealt with this keyword. It is highly recommended that you go and check our work. So I will just say model is equals to model, and you will have a problem by saying that price is equals to the price. Right, and then we want to differentiate from these prices, then I will use this keyword. If you go and watch our tutorial, that might help you as to what is happening here. The tutorial is called this keyword. Right, now when you hover over here, you see this will point to the field, and this will point to the member inside of your constructor. So we dealt with all this. I'm not going to waste time on that. So this is exactly what we have. We have this constructor, nothing is wrong with that. So when you instantiate the smartphone, you will pass in the string and the double price. And then I will have a public, and remember the equals method returns a boolean. Very, very important. It has to return a boolean, a true or a false. A true or a false. So I will say public bool equals, and this is exactly what I want to do. I want to say, remember the equals method here, it accepts an object, and this is a smartphone, and I am giving this smartphone the name. I'm not going to call this other, I'm going to call this smartphone. So this is just my object, or I can say the variable of the smartphone, but I love looking at this as an object variable, an object variable, the variable of a class. Others may also say that. So what is it that we are going to do here? Now the first thing that we should do, or that we should know when we use the equals method of this interface, is that the two smartphones or 3 or 4 or 5 that we are going to compare. Two smartphones are considered identical, are considered the same if they are the same model and have the same price. Very important. We consider these smartphones that we are trying to compare as being equal if they have the same model number and they also have the same price. So in other words, when we compare objects, we are in fact comparing whether the members inside of the objects carry the same data or not. This is exactly what we are interested on. So it is a boolean, therefore it needs to have a return type. So what is it that we want to return? Now remember, I want to differentiate between the model, between this and that, and then what am I going to use? This keyword. So I'm going to say model is equals to smartphone dot model, and remember we are comparing in terms of the model and in terms of the price. So if the model is the same and the price is the same of the two different objects, therefore they are considered to be the same. Right, and you see here I did not include this keyword, but it has referenced to the correct thing. But just to ensure, which is not necessary, I will just use this keyword, and this keyword will still do the very same thing. So what am I saying here? It will return. Remember, the equals method uses the double equal sign operator, which returns a boolean. Returns true if the value of A is the same as the value of B. Otherwise, if they are not, it will return false. So if it returns false, the two objects that we are trying to compare have different data. Either the model is not the same but the price is the same, or either the price is the same but the model is not the same. So we cannot just compare one thing here. Remember, a smartphone is made up of two things. It must have a model and a price. So when you want to use the equals method in this interface that inherits from an interface equatable, we have to compare every field that is inside of that smartphone. So hence we have the end here, and then remember the end comparison, it returns true if both sides are true. So if the model is the same as the model of the other object and the price of one object is exactly the same as the price of the other, therefore it will return true. It requires both things that are compared to be true in order to return true. So we dealt with I don't think I dealt with the and the or comparisons, but we will deal with that. But I will explain in this tutorial so that you understand exactly what is happening. So what is important is that we are using the double equal sign operator. And what makes things different here, the smartphone inherits from an interface method equatable, and it has to accept a type, and the type here is specified as an object. It accepts a class. Very important. And when I say public bool and then I say equals, it indicates whether the current object is equals to another object of the same type. Very important. It has to be two objects and returns true, and so on and so on. And nullability of reference types in the type of parameter smartphone of the bool dot what and so on doesn't match the implicitly implemented member bool, and so on and so on. Okay, that is not so much important for us. Everything is fine. And then one last thing that is done that we need to do, we need to just create objects, populate these objects with the data, and then start trying to use the method. So let's try and check again. We have this public bool equals, And what is this now? This is a method that accepts what? It is a method, and this method, look, bool smartphone dot equals. You see, smartphone. Now look where this comes from. Smartphone dot equals. So this, and then we have this smartphone, and then we have the variable of this. So this method, when we invoke this method that returns a boolean, it will go and look at those things, and if they are equal, it will return true, and if they are not, it will return false. So the first thing that we need to do when we are here is to create an object of a smartphone. So I will say smartphone, and this will be phone underscore 1 equals new smartphone. Now the constructor, the constructor of the smartphone, I know that it accepts two things. It requires the model and the price. So let me just have Nokia C2, and the price is very cheap. This is a 500 rand cell phone, and then I am just going to copy this and try to paste this 4 times, and this will be the phone 2, this will be the phone 3, and this will be the phone 4. Right, so I have 4 objects. Right, that is fine. So let me just make this one C3, let me just make this one C2, and let me just make the last one Motorola. And I'm going to make the prices here to be okay, those ones will have the same price. Let me make this one 700, and let me make that one 900. So this is a C2 and a C2. So okay, those ones are equal, but we will just try to run this and see exactly what is happening. So I have created these objects, and one thing that I should always keep in mind is now I need to compare them. And how do I compare these objects? This is the question. So I'm going to use an if statement. So I'm going to say if phone 1 dot equals, very important, and then when you hover over here, it says indicates whether the current object is equals to another object of the same type. Now I will have my brackets like this, and then one thing that I will do, the object to compare with the current object. Now I have the first object here, it is phone 1, and then in the brackets here it is looking for the object to compare with phone 1, another object. And then now let me try to send in another object there, which is phone 2. Right, oh sorry. And then once that is done inside of the if statement, let me just have a write line using static system. This is just an import dot console. So one thing that I'm going to do, I just want to have a write line, and the write line will just say phone 1 and phone 2 are the same if they are. So I just want to have phone underscore 1 and phone underscore 2 are the same. Very important, this is one thing that I want to do. So I'm going to use if statements that if comparison. So here I'm going to say let me compare phone 1 with phone 3. That's also fine. I can do that, and I can just copy this line and I can just paste that. So here it will say phone 1 and phone 3 are the same, if that is the case. And then here let me have an if statement for let me compare phone 2 with phone 4. So here let me just compare phone 2 with phone 4. Enter, enter, and enter. So I'll just copy this and I'll just paste. Let me just close up here, and here I will just say phone 2 and phone 4. So I know that when I run this, let us just try to check what will happen here. Right, so I have these if statements. Phone 1 dot equals phone 2, and then if that is true, it will go and execute this line. Phone 2 is equals to whatever. So let's check which ones are the same. Only one if statement must be executed here, because I know that only phone 1 and phone 3 are the same. Only one if statement, so I will only have one right line here. Phone 1 and phone 3 are the same. That is exactly what I should have. Phone 1 and phone 3 are the same, so this is working just well. So it is very, very important that we understand that, right? And then we can continue. Now what we are going to do, we are going to use the equals and the contains method, right? Because it is possible that we can check whether an object is contained in a list collection via the equals and the contains method. This is exactly what we want to do. We want to check whether an object is contained in a list collection via the equals and contains method. So this is exactly what we will try to achieve here. Right, the first thing we need, but because this is so intelligent, this Visual Studio 2023, we just need to import the system.collections.generic, but I'm not going to do that, but it will import that in the background. So what we are going to do, right, we are still here. We are okay. Let me go here. I said we are going to use the equals method and the contains. So we will leave everything the way it is there. Even the constructors will be the same. Even this method will be the same. So what else will we do? So we leave just everything the way in which it is. And then one thing that we are going to do now is to create a list of objects here. So let me just have a right line. Let me just have a right line, and in this right line I'm going to say using the equals method together with contains method of a list. Using the equals method together with the contains method of a list. So this is just a heading that we have. So the first important thing that we will do, we will create a list. There it is, and we need to specify the type. We use those brackets. So list of a type. Type, T stands for a type, whether this list is a list of strings, booleans, objects, and so on. Right, list of a type represents a strongly typed list of objects that can be accessed by an index. We dealt with this when we looked at collections, and we looked at the when we looked at the collections, we dealt with the index. Right, provides method to search. It provides the capabilities that we can search and manipulate the list. T, the type of elements in the list. Now the type of the elements in the list will be objects. So I'm sending in a class there, and now I need to give this a name. Okay, I can just call that smartphones, and this is equals to a new, there it is, a new list of smartphones, and then I'm just going to close that. Very, very important. Now once that has been done, the first thing that I am going to do is to add to this list. So I'm going to say smartphones dot add, and remember you are using this name, something like a variable of the smartphone. You have this list, you specified the type, and you give it a name, something like an object, because you are reserving memory for that. It looks similar like when we create an object of a class. It looks very much similar, because this is there are some things. So just try to look at this as the object of the smartphone. So we are going to say smartphone.add, and we have phone 1. So this looks exactly like an object. So we have this smartphone.add phone 1. So this is the first. So what are we adding? We are adding inside of a list. Now check, add an object to the end of a list. So we are adding to this list, to the end of your list. Right, so I have added this phone 1, and I also want to add, let me check what else I can add. Let me just add phone. Let's add phone 4. Let's add phone 4. Very important. And then one thing that I'm going to do, I'm just going to add those two. And I'm going to use an if statement, and I'm going to say if smartphones, right, the object, remember I'm using the object here, dot, and I have the contains. We have the contains phone 1. So what are you saying, Dabezit? We are saying if smartphones dot contains phone 1. And what does this do? Right, it determines whether an element in the list determines whether an element is in the list. So it will check what? It will check whether the list contains phone 1. Is there an object which is called phone 1 inside of this list? This is exactly what we are trying to check. So I know inside of the list I have phone 1 and phone 4. I can come here and check for phone. You see, I can check for phone 2 and for phone 3. And I know they are not inside of the list. So I'm checking with something that I know is there inside of your list. So we will just say smartphones dot contains, let's say, phone 4, and then we can just have a right line that can say we can just say phone, sorry, let me say phone underscore 4 model is contained in the list or in the array. So this is just a right statement that I want to have. So I just want to say that in this if statement. Right. Secondly, I will use another if. And in this if, I will say smartphones dot, and I will say contains, and I pass in an object, and then I want to select an object that I know it's not in there. So which one will that be? So I'm going to say phone. I know I don't have phone 3 in there. I know that. Right. And then I'll just have a right line that says let me just say phone underscore 3 is contained in the array. I know this method will not be, it will never enter inside of this if statement because I know that we don't have phone 3 inside of the list. And then lastly, I will say if smartphone dot contains, and then I'm going to take in let me say phone 2. Phone 4, okay, let me say phone 1 because I know it is there in the list. And I will just copy this and just paste it there, and I will just do this. So I know only 2 if statements will execute here, phone 4 and phone 1. And I can try to run this and I can see whether things will work or not. This is very, very important. So how many did we add inside there? We have just added phone 1 and phone 4 inside of the list. I just only have phone 1 and phone 4. Right, okay, that is fine. And then if I run that, we will try and see exactly what will happen. So let's just try to run this. Right, let's check something. So using the equals method together with the contains method of a list, which is this one, right? And then it says phone 4 model is contained in the array. Now let's look at phone 4. Is it there? Yes, it is there. Okay, I repeated this 2 times. I am very, very sorry. So let me just go, and you see, I should have said phone 1. Yes, I do have phone 1, phone 3, and okay, we have phone 4 and phone 1. Okay, let's just run this. So it will just say, okay, let's just wait for it to complete, and there we have it. It will just say phone 4 model is contained in the array, phone 3 is contained in the array, and phone 1 is contained in the array. Now let's try to look at something very closely here. let me draw your attention. Right, let's go a little bit up. Right, we dealt with this. We dealt with this and we understood what is happening. Okay, that is fine. Right, and then we compared there, nothing new. And then we had these smartphones, and remember these smartphones, here they are. This is very important. These are the objects, and these objects I have 1, 2, 3 and 4, phone underscore 3 and 4. Right, and I am saying, let's just come here and show you. Here I am saying the smartphones, and when you press this, I want to show you something. Right, we have this list of smartphones, so we have added to the list phone 1 and phone 4, very important. And then it says smartphone dot contains phone 4, yes, smartphone dot contains phone 3, and smartphone dot contains phone 1. So why is it saying that phone 3 is there, whereas we did not include phone 3 inside? Can you please try to tell me why? Why do we have phone 3 there, whereas it was never added inside of the list? This is something that we need to ask ourselves. Why? Alright, let me just copy this. I want to show you something. Let's copy this, enter, and let's paste here. And here I want to say phone. Let me check. How many objects do I have? Only 4. So I have 1. Let me use 2 there. Right, so I have phone 1, 2, 3 and 4. Right, but I only added 1 and 4. So let us try to run this and check. Okay, we can just come here and we can just comment the very first ones. And now we have a problem. You see, because we did not create an object here. We did not create an object of what now? Of as an object that is called phone 1, phone 4 and so on. We did not create these objects. So when you comment the entire thing here, you are going to have a problem, because now by doing that, it has to take all this and add that to the list. Very, very important. It takes these objects, so you have these objects and you are just adding those objects to the list. So if you comment that, you will have some problems. So let me come here and stop doing that. Right, that's fine. The best of what we can do is to just comment here. We no longer want to run that, and everything will be fine. So let's run and see which ones will execute and which ones will not execute. We are using trial and error here so that we understand what is happening. So it says phone model 4 is contained in the array, phone model 3 is contained in the array, phone 1 is contained in the array, and it never came here. Phone 3. Phone 3 is contained in the array. It never ran this one. Why not phone 3? Why not phone 3? But I do have a phone 3 there. and it's a Nokia. Why? Because it's the same thing. You cannot add to a list two things that are the same. It will only take one. So please be very careful of this. Phone 3 is the same name, model is the same, and the price is the same. So it will not add that. Please, it will not. But let's change the price there and run the code and see what will happen. Phone 3. Right. And then when we are there, it says now phone 4 model is contained in the array and phone 1 is contained in the array. Now it has excluded phone 2, which is Nokia C3, and phone 2. So it's Nokia C2 and Nokia C3. But it has printed it has printed C1, which is Nokia, right? C2. And I have another Nokia C2 as phone 3. It will not print that. Why? Because it has the same model number. Okay, irrespective of the prices, it will not. And then secondly, yes, those are the only two ones. So maybe if I can come here and I can say maybe Nokia C7. Let's now try to run this. We are doing a trial and error here. So I have this Nokia C7 and it was still not printed. So it only printed one Nokia C2. It has printed Nokia C7. So what is happening here? I think it uses the index.length. Index.length. I think it looks at this in terms of the length of the characters that are inside there. So let's make this C77 and let's just try to run this. This is trial and error so that we understand why others are printed and why the others are not. So irrespective of the effort that we are making, nothing is happening. It will still print phone 4 and phone 1. So it prints phone 4 and phone 1. Why? Because you are using the same names here. Nokia, it will only take one Nokia. But if we used different names, okay, let me just press enter. I can come here and say Siemens, and I can come here and say BlackBerry, and now I have 4 different names, and I can run this code and it will only print phone 4 and phone 1 because in the list here, remember you have phone 4 and phone 1. So you added only phone 4 and phone 1. So it will print that. Right, let us add to the list. So I'm going to say smartphones dot add, and I'm going to add phone 3. And I'm gonna copy this, paste, and I'm gonna add phone 2. Right, and then I'm going to run this and we will check what is happening. And now it prints okay, let me just fix something here. Phone 3, phone 4, phone 3, phone 1, and phone 2. So it repeated one thing many times here. Let me just fix that. You see, this is phone 3, phone 2, sorry. So when we try and run the code, let us just try to see what will really happen here. So because we have added to the list, Now it prints the entire list because it is now contained inside of the array. So in our list of objects, we have added all the objects that are there, and then it will be able to print them out. So this is just something that I wanted us to share. Please do not forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next tutorial.